Time for episode 6 of the Overwatch League Offseason Recap Season 5 edition. The excitement continues as a whole bunch of teams made some very interesting additions to their squad recently. If you're excited, be sure to hit that like button as we get right into things here. I'm gonna start with what I consider to be the most exciting news of the video. The San Francisco Shock announced the signing of Proper, Kilo, and Finn from the top Korean contenders team, O2 Blast. If you're going to largely reset your roster, you might as well do it in style and do it in a way where you can still be competitive moving forward. We may be moving on from the original era of the Shock, but this new chapter is shaping up to be very exciting. All three of these rookies could truly be something special at this level. They're learning from one of the best coaching staffs in the league, and they'll already feel comfortable playing with one another thanks to that O2 Blast synergy. For those who don't actively follow contenders, these guys won back-to-back seasons of Korean contenders. The Overwatch League seemed like a likely destination for all of them to truly put their skills to the test. And in my honest opinion, each of them do have what it takes to hold their own. The big name to look out for, of course, is Proper. This is the one that everybody's excited about. This DPS player was widely regarded as a top prospect in this year's rookie class, if not the #1 prospect. And there's good reason. This dude is a monster, a true hard carry machine. His intangibles and mechanics, they're very strong for a rookie. He's also quite flexible though, as he's proven to be capable on both the projectile and hit scan role, making him a versatile option in just about any lineup. You've got to be on the lookout for that Tracer of his. He could be a true X-factor in that regard. Maybe he'll be the next Pelican in the sense that he'll win Rookie of the Year and be that next player that we're all really excited about moving forward. If everything works out, he could be that next big-time star that this league has to offer. But don't let the spotlight of Proper take your attention away from those teammates of his. His partner in crime, Kilo, is there to fill out any and all hit scan / long-range sniper roles. And I'm pretty sure he can play Sombra as well, so that's a plus. He makes for an appealing all-around option at the hit scan position, who in theory should hold the zone against a fair number of other hitscan players in the league. While he did split time with his fellow hitscan player Merit at times, Kilo was still a standout player who obviously got a lot of attention from some elite orgs if a team like the Shock was taking interest in him. I'll admit that I'm not as well versed or confident in Kilo as I am with Proper, but the mystery element kind of gets you even more excited to watch him this year, you know? So that's all well and good. The Shock have their foundation at DPS. But what about Finn? Well, you should probably expect him to be the replacement for Twilight in a sense. He's a good player who will likely see playtime when the meta calls for Ana and or double flex support compositions. Now for all I know, maybe him or Violet is going to fill out the main support stuff like Brigitte as well, but I have my doubts. It would be quite surprising if the Shock don't sign some sort of main support during the offseason, but thinking about what Finn himself brings to the table, it's pretty much a little of everything. He's a well-rounded playmaker who fills in any holes left behind by Violet's game. But who knows? Maybe there will be times where he starts just because of that synergy with the other O2 Blast players. We'll have to see what kind of plans the Shock have for this guy, because the possibilities are practically endless. Finn is young, but also reliable, and I have no doubt in my mind that Krusty will find appropriate ways to use him. So technically speaking, the Shock now have a potential starting 5. They've got the O2 Blast guys, plus Violet and Super. Surely more moves will be on the way, but this is a great place to start, I feel. Their retooling process is going pretty well so far. Obviously, there's still a couple of needs they've got to address, but this will definitely get the Shock fans excited, which is a great first step to take. Now let's see if they can finish strong, because that's going to be the key if they want to keep on competing. The next major announcement on the list as we move on here comes from the Atlanta Reign as they went ahead and announced their entire roster for the 2022 season. Kai, Gator, and Hawk are all back, but more importantly, we've got quite a few new faces. Ultraviolet, OG, Venom, and Nero replace everything Atlanta got rid of during the offseason. Let's talk about these pickups because quite a few of them are exciting. Starting with Ultraviolet and OG, this former duo from North American Contenders will make up the support line. The two of them became an iconic duo as part of the American Tornado Corps, where they dominated the region for the better part of around 8 months. The thing is though, OG in particular was well known way before his American Tornado days. Most of his supporters argue he's been league ready for a couple of years now. The problem was he was never old enough to play due to the league's strict age requirement. This American-born main support is a beast. His potential is immense, and I'd consider him to be one of the highest rated supports we've ever seen going into his rookie year. He's just so darn good. I really have no idea how else to explain it, because this man is a grinder. Over time, he's become flexible on just about every main support character. I personally have always been a huge fan of his Lucio, even going back to his days on XL2. I have extremely high hopes for OG, and many of you do as well, but because he receives so much praise, he definitely will have a fair bit of pressure to deal with, and I don't just mean that because he gets all of this praise. You also have to think about what it means for the Atlanta Reign. He has to fill in the shoes of Masa, this player who helped the team make the finals last year, so he's going to be expected to also do great things. However, if there's one guy who could handle the rookie pressures that are like at this kind of level, it's definitely him. Losing a fan favorite like Masa is always going to be really sad, but I don't think the Reign fans out there have to worry about much because you're in very capable hands. And if I'm being honest with you, I have similar hopes for Ultraviolet. I don't rate him as highly as OG, but this dude is a grinder as well. Despite having to wait around 5 years, this guy stayed motivated in hopes of one day making the league. Ultraviolet also has a rich history in contenders, which saw him play for a lot of teams like Square One and Second Wind before eventually joining American Tornado. But even after the American Tornado days, he continued to stay hungry and find success elsewhere. He played for the collegiate team Redbird Esports recently, and that team literally won every event they participated in. Ultraviolet plays a very clean game, and I for one am a huge fan of Zenyatta in particular, but I recognize that he's a pretty nice option in general. This young support duo could absolutely kill it if fortune falls in their favor. Ultraviolet and OG are some of the most exciting prospects from the US we have seen in quite some time, and I'm super pumped. The two of them have some big shoes to fill. I think that Masa and Iris were incredibly solid this year, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they handle it all. Transitioning to the Venom pickup, I was surprised to see him join this team because a lot of us heard that Atlanta were going fully Western this year, but this pickup immediately disproves that. Regardless, this is still a noteworthy signing. Some of you may recognize this guy under his former handle, Sigma. At the start of this year, this guy kind of just came out of nowhere and won the hearts of many while doing so. This Korean phenom came to NA contenders to prove himself, and it's safe to say that he passed the test with flying colors, and I'm not just saying that because of his interesting name choice. Sigma, aka Venom, was putting out massive performances. He quickly became known as a crazy Tracer player, but right as the hype was hitting its peak with this guy, he retired. But all of a sudden, he's back, and in the Overwatch League now of all places. Given how crazy Kai is, I suspect that he won't always be in the starting lineup, but believe me when I say that he will be around. If Tracer is relevant, he's going to see playtime. He'll be the new and arguably improved version of Edison for this team. I only say improved because we don't quite know what his potential is yet, so there is a possibility that he could be even better than Edison, which is why I think it's a very exciting and mysterious pickup. It's very intriguing to say the least, and not many people were expecting it. The thing that I'm honestly the most excited about is seeing how he compares to other top Tracer players in the league. That should be a lot of fun to watch. And finally, we have Nero, and I think we all kind of know what the Atlanta Reign are trying to get out of him. It's kind of what he's built his career off of: general reliable play and flexibility. He's not a bad pickup by any means. I know that the Shock didn't really live up to expectations this year, but Nero genuinely had a pretty decent year anyway. I'm not really upset about this pickup given that the Atlanta Reign decided to mostly go Western. I think that Nero fills out a lot of your needs and gives your team tons of options. The obvious concern, though, is whether or not he fills in the shoes of Pelican. It's basically the same situation as last year when Nero joined the Shock after Rascal left the team. Pelican was the most valuable player on the Atlanta Reign in Season 4. He propelled them into that top tier status thanks to his incredible play on literally everything. If Nero doesn't make those consistently great plays that Pelican did, Atlanta might end up suffering. I do like this Nero pickup. He's a player I've always respected, but nothing can change that this is a downgrade on paper. I hate to sound harsh or mean, but it's the truth simply because Pelican was that amazing. How far the Reign can go will absolutely rest on somebody like Nero's shoulders. Keep a close eye on him. So yeah, that's the Atlanta roster for 2022. Not bad. This team could definitely still be reliable and competitive, but can they find the same level of success as 2021? I'm not too sure about that, because I think that Iris and Pelican are huge losses, and they're also down a great coach due to Unter heading to the Gladiators. On paper, the Reign are good, but probably not at 2021 level. Guess we'll find out soon enough though. Anyway, let's move on to some Gladiator news. The big thing that most fans were hoping to hear has come true. Space is back with the team for 2022. He originally entered free agency to weigh his options, so surely this is a huge relief for many of the fans, and understandably so because Space popped off this year. It's the best year he has had in a while in my opinion. He's a great choice to have on just about any team due to his communication, leadership, and strong play on heroes like D.Va. Space is one of the big personalities of this franchise, and I think that holding on to him will only benefit the Gladiators in the long run. But the Glads were not done there. To compensate for the departure of Muze, they signed former American Tornado and Redbird esports main tank, Reiner. While some fans are still disappointed by the exit of Muze, Reiner is not a bad replacement. This American main tank has also generated tons of hype, just like with OG and Ultraviolet, aka his former teammates. I feel like it's been forever since we've seen an American main tank get a starting role at the Overwatch League level and have hype surround him at the same time, and I think the Glads picked a good one in that regard. He seems like a fun person to be around, and he's a very intelligent player who makes good decisions. The big characters that people seem to praise him for, from what I can tell, is Reinhardt and Wrecking Ball, especially as Rein though, that's like his best character. And while he will have to build up synergy from the ground up with his new teammates, I think there's a lot of hope that Reiner can succeed under the system just because he'll be working with some very talented individuals and great coaching. Reiner's got a good head on his shoulders, and it might be tough at first, but there's reason to trust in him, just like with Muze. So yeah, Reiner coming to the league is very hype, and I'm sure a bunch of you are very curious to see if he can fill in the shoes left behind by Muze. But guess what, Glads fans? I've got even more news for you, because after the DPay departure that happened, the Glads promoted assistant coach Face to head coach. Along with that, they picked up Unter, as mentioned previously, and Smash, who hails from O2 Blast. Not gonna lie, this coaching lineup on paper is crazy. Face has been around since Season 3, and I think the Glads organization likes him a lot, so his promotion is understandable. And now he's working with some incredible minds. Unter and him are going to hit it off immediately because they've got that Australian connection. But also, Unter is just a great coach in general who is literally coming off a grand finals appearance with the Atlanta Reign. I for one believe that Unter was a massive difference maker for the Atlanta Reign and the LA Valiant back in the day, and I suspect that he'll do much of the same on the Glads. If I'm telling the truth, it's disappointing to witness the Reign lose this guy. I'm not entirely sure why he's no longer on the team, nor if his departure was something the Atlanta Reign could control, but regardless, it seems like a huge loss. It's yet another reason why I believe the Reign could be showing signs of regression in 2022, and in return, the Glads could be leveling up due to him, but also Coach Smash. Literally just because Smash is from O2 Blast, he immediately deserves a chance just because of how dominant that franchise has been recently. Combining his dominant mind with the other two sounds terrifying. And now, after all of this, the Glads pretty much have a complete roster. One that seems pretty solid, albeit. If Reiner, Astro, and Ant work out with the new coaching staff, I think that the Glads could be scary. Next, we move on to the Florida Mayhem, who said their goodbyes to Yaki. This was expected based on the rumors. He's expected to be joining the NYXL soon, but they have not made any sort of announcement video as of the uploading of this content. Albert made it clear that Yaki wanted to be on a full Korean team, so a trade was bound to happen. Florida are moving on, so it's really time to say goodbye as they head into a new era of their franchise. This one probably hurts more than any of the others that have happened so far if you're a Florida supporter, because Yaki, in most people's eyes, is the best player in this franchise's history. He's always going to be the undisputed superstar and hero of this team. Yaki's heroics and MVP level play are a big reason why the Mayhem were able to escape the basement dweller status at least for 1 year. His legend in a Florida jersey is ending here, but his legacy will last forever, and I'm sure that all my Florida fans watching will forever be grateful. It's gonna be weird seeing him play for a different team moving forward, but it'll be exciting. How about we dive back into some more Defiant news, shall we? They once again jumped into the headlines with the additions of Muze and Chorong. Sorry if I mispronounced that guy's name. I feel like everyone says it differently. Muze, of course, is coming off a decent season for the Glads, where he progressively got better as the team started to improve. I genuinely believe that Muze could take another step forward under the wing of KDG, who helped Sato recently rise to stardom, so while he may not end up being as dominant as 2020 Sato, I believe that Muze could continue to be a consistent and stable player, which is all you can really ask for at the tank position these days. I dig this pickup. If it was still 6v6, I'd be less enthusiastic just because I don't think that Muze and Hoppa sounds very amazing on paper, but since they're no longer together and it's kind of just a one-tank system, it's not so bad. To put it simply, Toronto have a young and promising player here who still has room to grow. Not bad at all, Defiant. Not bad at all. The more mysterious pickup for a lot of you, though, will be rookie main support player Chorong. He is yet another highly rated main support prospect in what honestly is a stacked rookie class. Chorong played for the number 2 Korean contenders team, Talon Esports. He made up one half of a really solid support line, which was arguably the backbone of the team. Toronto basically traded in Ansun Jae for a more appealing option with a higher skill cap. Chorong and Twilight could be a nasty support duo, and if everything goes well, they might even be considered elite at their position. And with this pickup in mind, Toronto basically have their main core set in stone now. All they're really missing at this point is a flex DPS. If they manage to get a big name player here as well, this team is going to look pretty respectable. That's all I've got for you in terms of Defiant news, so we're on to the Philly Fusion. The super good news for Philly fans, of course, is that Carpe and Alarm are officially back, but more importantly, they brought in MN3 and Zest to round out their DPS rotation. These two both come from Philly's academy team, T1, which probably won't surprise many of you when considering what they've already done with their coaching staff this year. The Fusion are basically buying into a core of players that are already within their org. Beyond being favored by the coaches though, both MN3 and Zest do have promise. MN3 is a standout player of the two for sure, as he's very capable on hit scan, and he low-key might become the new Hisu of the Philly roster. From the highlights I've seen, he is very explosive. And that is something that the Fusion need badly. I think a shakeup at DPS would be greatly beneficial. It's part of why Season 3 back in the day went so well for them. Hisu was a game changer and made a lot of openings once he was old enough to play in the league. If NM3 can become that new guy, it opens up the possibility of a comeback year for Philly, because I think that pushing Carpe and Alarm that extra mile with a young and motivated individual could be a great thing. And this applies to Zest as well. As the starting flex DPS, it will be his responsibility to pick up the slack when Carpe and Alarm need help. Zest is a great choice on just about any projectile hero, so expect him to do most of the heavy lifting in this role. Along with that, he can also play a little Tracer from what I can remember, so that's pretty important. If the meta calls for Tracer plus some sort of hit scan, that will allow for Carpe and or NM3 to focus more on the role they're the most effective on. His role, and by his role I mean Zest, is going to be a big one on this team. The Fusion need a step above what EQO and Rascal showed last year. If Zest can be that guy to push Philly to new heights, they'll be in great shape to compete for a playoff spot again in 2022. Next, I wanted to move on to the Paris Eternal, who recently announced the signing of Glister. While Paris did say they were open to signing players from any region during the offseason, this felt so unexpected because I've gotten so used to the idea of Paris being a fully European roster. And you have to remember that other teams were probably in a position to offer Glister more money as well. In fact, alexyOWL confirmed this on Twitter. But it looks like Glister cares a bit more about playing for the quote-unquote right team rather than making as much money as possible, and big respect to him on that end because not every pro player is willing to do that. The cool thing about this destination for Glister though is it likely means he will be a full-time starter once again. He didn't get the proper chance on the shock I feel, so I suspect his value could be noticeably higher on the Paris Eternal. For a while I questioned and wondered who the Paris Eternal would possibly replace Onigod with when the release first happened, but I take it all back now. This is an ideal upgrade, and I mean, hey, we all know what Glister's capable of. I think that him and Naga could be a solid duo. Gotta give props where it's due to the Paris Eternal and JMac for getting this done. You'd have to imagine that JMac had some sort of influence here. After all, him and Glister were former teammates on the London Spitfire. Good stuff by Paris, and congrats to Glister. I think this is a great place for him to revitalize his career and realize his true potential. How about we move into some Washington Justice news now? They went ahead and went heavy with their flex support rotation as they signed Vigilante and former London Spitfire flex support Krillin. Vigilante, in my opinion, makes sense. He made up the other half of that Talon esports support line I was referencing earlier. He's got a reliable Zenyatta and Ana from a playmaking standpoint. However, I for one think that Vigilante shines in another place. He is incredibly good at setting up and enabling his teammates. Just by taking a look at how I place Baptiste, for example, you'll immediately know what I mean because he's a very selfless player, which isn't something you see every day with flex supports these days, I feel, as they're all trying to be aggressive and make plays themselves. Don't be mistaken, Vigilante can do that as well, he's more than good enough, but he just has a really good overall style of play that can work out for a team in multiple ways, which is something I can appreciate. Flexibility is never something you should ever complain about. While he's not the absurdly aggressive playmaker that would be ideal for Washington, like with a Jonek or Twilight, let's say, Change is still change, right? It's better than sticking with Bebe. The Justice needed some new and exciting players in that support position, and Vigilante fits the bill. He very well could be the upgrade the Justice need. Seeing him make the league is not surprising, but what might catch you a bit more off guard, I think, is the addition of Krillin, because I, for one, was not expecting him to ever come back to the league. He never really showed anything out of the ordinary during his days on London, so this is a pleasant surprise. Although, when we really think about it, I suppose that it makes sense when considering that he was also a member of T1, and that team has been getting so much attention during the offseason. If Krillin is back, you would have to imagine he improves somehow. No duh, you know? T1 was a respectable team, and I think that part of it probably came after he joined the squad. Vigilante is probably the guy you'd expect to start, so maybe Krillin could be a flex option of sorts. Maybe he could come in for like double flex support comps, or there might even be a situation where he's straight up better on a certain hero compared to Vigilante. No matter who ends up starting though and who gets more playtime over the other, the key factor to take away here is the Justice now have options at flex support and they don't have to feel so stuck. It won't be like last year when there was one option and one option only. So in that regard, a job well done by the Justice. Vigilante is a very exciting prospect who could be a life changer for the Washington Justice. I kinda wish they got a bigger name. I was truly hoping they'd sign Twilight, let's say, but hey, we don't always get what we want. Sometimes we have to settle for what's available, and the Justice just have to do what they can. Finishing up your player acquisitions for the day, the Boston Uprising signed former Seoul Dynasty tank player Marvel as their new main tank. I think some people might question this just because Marvel did have his ups and downs with Seoul, as they were kind of a mess during a lot of the time that he was tenured with the team, but some people forget that in Season 2, he definitely was a monster player, especially after Fissure retired and kind of gave him the keys to the team, if you will. So I think that this pickup could end up working out, especially because it was probably a budget pickup of some sort. I really don't know how many teams were super interested in Marvel. I'm sure there were a couple, but I'm glad the Boston Uprising won the sweepstakes for him, because I genuinely do think he could be a better player than Stand 1 was. Marvel isn't great at everything. I think there are some heroes he could improve on, like Orisa, let's say, but I think you just have to realize that his hero pool in general is going to be good in the Overwatch 2 era. He can play Rein, he can play Winston, he can play Wrecking Ball, all very well, but he also has that Sigma that he can play, which is probably going to come in even more handy this year because, you know, there's only one tank in the game at a time, and if Sigma is needed, then Marvel can fill out that role and arguably do better on it than somebody like Punk. So all in all, I dig this pickup. There's no guarantee that Marvel is going to work out, but just given the potential and what we saw back in the day, there is definitely a good reason to give this guy a chance. The one unique challenge I see with Marvel joining Boston, aside from this just being a new team environment that he's not used to, is the fact that I believe this is the first time in his career where he will have to be on an English-speaking roster. So that's going to be interesting to see if he can handle something like that, and if his communication can be anywhere near what it is being on a full Korean team. The good news for Marvel is he will have translators to help out Crimzo and him kind of communicate with one another, since everybody else is Korean on the roster, and a bunch of those guys already seem comfortable speaking English, so maybe Marvel's transition won't be that bad. I'm not sure how this experiment is going to go, but I'm super pumped for Marvel. I've always been a big fan of his, and I'm glad that he's going to be the official tank of his team again, and he's not going to be fighting for playtime like he did during Season 3 and 4. But wait, Boston fans, you also have to think about something else that happened with your team. Thankfully, Valentine has decided to commit to the team for another season, so now the Uprising basically have their starting lineup. You have Marvel and or Punk, then you have Valentine and Striker, plus Crimzo and Faith. Not bad at all. So let's wrap up today's recap in the world of coaching. Former LA Valiant off-tank Mcgravy will be joining the new-look Florida Mayhem coaching staff. This is Mcgravy's first coaching gig at this level, and the last time he coached, I believe, in general, was December 2020. Needless to say, we have not seen much of what Mcgravy is capable of in this role, nor have we seen him coach in a long time. Despite all of this, though, I still think it's understandable why Florida showed interest in him. Remember their new head coach, Goomba? Yeah, well, he worked with Mcgravy on the Valiant in 2020, so clearly they have a good relationship. But also, you just have to remember that Mcgravy in general is a great and hardworking person. Usually I'd be a bit more concerned when it comes to a coach's inexperience, but I think that Mcgravy has to be an exemption because he played the game for many years and he knows what it takes to be as good as anybody else, you know? I've seen a fair bit of complaints about this decision, but in my opinion, there's really no reason to. Why not? Florida are rebuilding, and I think that some people are forgetting about this. They're no longer pursuing a championship right now. The goal is to establish a future, and as I said in the last video, sometimes if you want that to work out, you have to take some chances. Mcgravy is fun to work with, and he's going to be motivated. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but let's give him a chance, you know? What do Florida have to lose here? I like Mcgravy, and I'm excited to see what he can do. And on that note, another offseason recap is in the books. So many big names are already off the boards, and more announcements will be on the way before we know it. I mean, I'm sure some are going to come literally right after this video is uploaded. So many teams still haven't made a single announcement yet, so the next few weeks are going to be wild. A lot's going to be happening, and it could seem overwhelming, so if you want to stay up to date on all of it, make sure to subscribe as I plan to cover all of it every single week. And as always, thank you all so much for watching this video. I appreciate your support so much, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.